say we're woke. We sell drinks bad as smoke. China is our labor supplier that drives our stock price even higher. What the world knows today, obesity won't go away. Coca-Cola, diabetes is here to stay. That's a real thing. What the world knows today, obesity won't go away. Diabetes is here to stay. That's a real thing. Coca-Cola.
We should never allow the government to decide what is acceptable speech and what is unacceptable speech. We should penalize behaviors, not opinions, and not speech. If you start trying to regulate speech, start trying to regulate thoughts, start trying to regulate beliefs rather than behaviors, there's no way that you're not going to abridge the constitutional rights of millions of Americans.
Rated PG-13.
Hi, I'm George Lucas. In my past 40 years of motion picture making, no subject has so inspired me as this story that happened in August 2016. The world saw a 3-year-old boy on global networks, and it really touched my heart. So much so that I had to tell his story. His name is Omran Daknish. His story is real. It happened. I'm telling this story because millions of other children just like Omran are still being hurt in war-torn countries resulting from neglect, illness, and uncaring masses. We must remember them all. You won't be leaving the movie theater without a tear in your eyes. I hope you'll come.
Rated PG-13.
I am Patrick McGugan, John Drake. But you also know me as Number 6. Who was I, really? I represented you, the private citizen. It was symbolism of the socialist world order we see today. You didn't get it, did you? Now we all are facing this reality, that all are controlled by the New World Order.
Volkswagen, das Auto.
Years later, the horror lives in these images of a packed supermarket splashed with gas. 5 people, mothers, daughters, as young as 4, all burned alive in an act of terrorism long before September 11th made that threat a part of everyday life in America. Doctors said Billy Ferry was a deranged drifter who thought he was attacking a Russian military base.
They castrated my wife and my 4-year-old son 3 years ago, buddy, and I crucified Hillsborough County with radioactive asbestos gas.
It was public defender Craig Aldridge's first death penalty case. Looking back, he says, Ferry should have never been on the street.
Everybody knew that there was a mentally deranged person on the streets of Tampa. And the bottom line is the system failed them. The family begged to do something to help him, and they never helped.
Ferry even spray painted a warning in the neighborhood only days before the firebomb. I interviewed Ferry's sister Rhonda that night.
And all we ever got out of him was, well, how do you know he's crazy? Who are you to say that he's crazy?
After a year in a state hospital, Ferry was brought back. The funerals may have been over, but the mourning had turned to anger as the trial began.
I swear you could feel the hostility. It was like heat from a pot-bellied stove. You could feel it.
Also in court, the families of the victims. The Carters lost their 20-year-old daughter, Leanne. She dreamed of being a school teacher, of having a family of her own. Her father and brother live now near Atlanta. They say they want Leanne's memory kept alive.
I know a lot of the families didn't want to talk about it this year, but we don't want people to forget about it.
The Carters say they'll never accept the state Supreme Court's decision to commute Ferry's death sentences to life without parole.
I want him dead. I want him to be dead from that very night that it happened, because he took my daughter away from me.
It's little solace to the Carters that police 20 years later are better trained to deal with the Billy Ferrys amongst us. Warren Ellie, Fox Fox 13 News.
A special doll, a teddy bear, a smile. These are the memories that link Gene Carter to the daughter he's lost.
She was a very precious young lady.
It was a July night in 1983. A man named Billy Ferry walked into a neighborhood Winn-Dixie and set the store ablaze. Leanne Carter and 4 others died.
Found my wife, Sue. She's dead, isn't she? They never told us. We had to ask.
It was only one of a string of mass murders in recent history. Killings like the massacre at a California McDonald's that took 22 lives, or the bloodletting at a Texas restaurant where 23 died last month, or the Iowa student who gunned down his colleagues last week. Experts say there is a profile of such a killer, but it doesn't always fit.
Psychiatry today cannot predict who's going to commit a crime like that, who's going to kill, who's going to behave.
But critics argue that mass killers give themselves away ahead of time. Weeks before the firebombing, Billy Ferry's mother begged the authorities to do something for her deranged son. And a week before William Cruz opened fire in a Palm Bay shopping center, police warned the neighbors Cruz might be dangerous.
As soon as we recognize that these people are mentally ill, they can be recognized, diagnosed, and treated, we can start preventing this kind of thing, and we can.
The words ring hollow for Gene Carter. All he sees is a senseless murder and a child he can never get back.
My heart breaks every single day we think about her.
Another body under another sheet. But behind every statistic is a person with a family and a history and a wealth of experiences that have ended in one quick, brutal moment. Such is the case of Leanne Carter, a girl who was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It seemed like it happened last night. We got a call from the manager at the store where she worked all the time that there had been a fire at the store she was working at that night. And that Lee, our daughter, was missing.
July 2nd, 1983. It's 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. A hermit named Billy Ferry, armed with a jar full of gasoline, enters this Winn-Dixie supermarket in Claremelle City. He throws the gas on a checkout station and lights a match. 5 people are killed. Gene Carter, unaware of the scope of the tragedy, frantically searches for his daughter Lee.
Finally, Hillsborough County detective came in and asked us to come in a room and wanted to know what Lee had on. And I just kept asking questions, and finally my wife says, she's dead.
For Gene, his wife Nada, and son David, the unimaginable had happened. Lee, an aspiring Hillsborough Community College student with dreams of becoming a school teacher, had been killed.
We primarily kept the room as it was when she left that morning. It brings back many, many good memories. It took us quite a while before we could even go in there.
Memories of a happier time, an oboe and a clarinet packed away after years of silence, a memento of a high schooler's most important night, a note expressing young love, a clock set to the exact moment Leanne Carter's life ended, a wedding dress that would never be used.
I, as a father, will not have the opportunity to walk my daughter down the aisle when she gets married, which is one of the greatest thrill I can imagine that a father has, or you can look forward to. And my wife and I won't have the opportunity to be grandparents of her child.
The prosecutor told each and every one of us that if there was one sign of any type of emotions, that the judge could declare a mistrial.
Gene finds strength through the Homicide Survivors Support Group of Hillsborough County.
The Homicide Survivors Group has really been a great help. Everyone that comes to the group has experienced a death by homicide. And if you want to cuss, fuss, smile, or whatever, you're free to do it. If you want to cry, you can cry.
So Gene takes life a day at a time now. Some days are easy, others aren't. But as he looks to the past, he thinks of only the good memories of the last time Gene Carter saw his daughter Lee. It's a moment he'll cherish forever.
I got to hug her, tell her that I love her. We never got to see her, never got to see her again.
It's been 10 years since Billy Ferry walked into the Winn-Dixie in East Tampa and torched the place. You would think relatives of some of the victims would have healed by now, but the father of 20-year-old cashier Leanne Carter will tell you it's a burden that gets heavier every year.
My episode seemed like it just happened last night. But we never got a chance to stand up through the judicial system. And let them know what a sweet, young, beautiful young lady that our daughter was.
Leanne Carter didn't want to transfer to this Palm River Winn-Dixie. She thought the neighborhood was too rough and had even written a letter of resignation. But her father told her, you can't run away from your problems. 3 days after she transferred, Billy Ferry comes in, possessed by demons, and believing the communists are taking over the world food supply, douses everyone with gasoline and burns her alive.
Poor cashier, she didn't make it. You see, he burned a bad boy real bad. I think he's still alive. I think there's a little boy that died because I saw his body laying there. I don't know if he was dead or not, but he wasn't moving. But he hurt a lot of innocent people.
Gene Carter has never recovered from this.
Our daughter had 2 gallons of gasoline thrown on her. I just hadn't been so strong in my bringings up and my beliefs. She actually typed out a resignation to resign June the 30th so that she wouldn't have to go over there July the 2nd. I'll pass it on.
Gene has been telling the story over and over at the group meetings of the homicide victim survivors. Everyone here has suffered a tragedy of their own, but they all tell you if they could, they would grab some of Gene Carter's sorrow for themselves. They all want to help him bury any guilt he may feel, because they know he represents what might happen to them as the years go by. They've witnessed Gene hanging on to mementos of his daughter's life. They've shared his story and told him their own.
Leanne, our daughter, was murdered on July the 2nd.
They've talked and marched and lit candles together.
We love you so very much.
And thank you for coming into our life and allowing us to share 20 years of sheer joy and happiness.
10 years of missing her is no reward for the 20 years of joy. It just wasn't long enough.
Year for. And we have with us live tonight Mr. and Mrs. Gene Carter. They are the parents of Lee Carter, a Winn-Dixie cashier killed that day a year ago. Mr. and Mrs. Carter and the rest of your family, we thank you for being with us tonight. Could you tell us what your reaction to today's decision was?
We are delighted that the trial, the court, and the judge has now found and ruled that this person is now competent to stand trial.
Could you describe, sir, your feelings about this man?
Our feelings are, sir, that we would certainly want that a speedy trial be held, and that our own personal feelings is, of course, that he be found guilty and that he be sent up and sentenced to die in the electric chair.
A year has passed now, sir, since the incident occurred, and it's given your family hopefully an opportunity to recover somewhat. Are you at all concerned that when the trial begins that you'll have to relive it all over again?
Sir, we have been reliving this the entire year, and we will continue to relive this our entire lifetime. It will never diminish our feelings and our love for our daughter.
Mr. Carter, Mrs. Carter, from all of us here at Newswatch 8, we thank you for being with us, and we hope that you have strength to get through all of this. I know it's been an awful experience for you.
Yes,
good luck to all of you.
Thank you so much, sir, and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Well, on to other things. Convicted. Ferry is charged with the deaths of 5 people after he allegedly poured gas on them and ignited it. Shoppers watched in horror. Ferry's been in a state hospital. Ferry apparently tried to...
He spit on sheriff deputies and shouted obscenities at reporters, but took the time to deny the charges against him.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ironically, Ferry was captured when he walked into another supermarket. He was recognized by a cashier from earlier newspaper and television reports. Police say last night Ferry walked into the supermarket with 5 gallons of gasoline covered up in a container, waited in the checkout lines, and then poured the gas over 6 people and set them on fire. The store was packed with holiday shoppers, and the fire spread so quickly it trapped 18 people in a wall of fire.
See, there's a little boy that died because I saw his body laying there. I don't know if he was dead or not, but he wasn't moving. But he hurt a lot of innocent people.
So far, 2 people are dead. Another is not expected to live, and 5 others are in critical condition. Before the bombing, neighbors saw a ferry right on this wall near the store. Billy can't handle it. See? Fire. Chuck Durini for NBC News from Claremelle City, Florida.
Best I can make out of it is he's a schizophrenic. For the 5 years we've been trying to get help, and the law tells us we can't do anything until he's actually committed a crime.
Good evening, I'm Deanna Lawrence. Tomorrow is a bitter anniversary that some Tampa families are forcing themselves to remember tonight. It was a year ago tomorrow that Billy Ferry allegedly carried a bucket of gasoline into a Winn-Dixie, starting a fire that took 5 lives. Declared incompetent, Ferry is in a state mental hospital tonight, but Pulse 13's Ken Kaltoff reports that the survivors still believe that he should be brought to trial.
There's nothing that you can say or really do that will erase what has happened.
The memory of 20-year-old Leanne Carter is still very much alive at her Brandon home. Her bedroom is as it was, with her collection of dolls on display and her Beatle posters on the wall. Her parents say it comforts them.
I know I have to be strong and go on, but I'll never forget her. And if I didn't have the memories, there wouldn't be anything left for me.
Leanne Carter was one of 5 people killed when John William Ferry walked into this Palm River Road Winn-Dixie store a year ago with a bucket of gasoline. He tossed it at Carter, a checkout clerk, and lit the gas ablaze. 13 others were injured that night. From the beginning, it was clear Billy Ferry was a troubled man.
I crucified Hillsborough County with radioactive asbestos stuff.
His bizarre behavior quickly got the unkempt drifter declared insane in court. That decision sent Ferry to an institution and left the victims' families appalled.
Common sense tells you that, man, this just isn't right.
The way it is now, he is up there and he's living every day. She's not. And I feel like he ought to be put in an electric chair.
Billy Ferry remains in a state mental hospital. His next scheduled evaluation is more than a year away. He has cleaned up, and he's said to be in better mental health than he was here. But he may never stand trial for the tragedy he sparked at this grocery store July 4th weekend a year ago. Ken Kaltoff, Pulse 13, Hillsborough County.
Came a man who made headlines, accused of firebombing a supermarket and killing 5 innocent people.
Newswatch 8's Chuck Durini covered the tragedy a year ago today and is leading off a team report. Chuck, what has this year meant?
Well, for Billy Ferry, it's been a year of psychiatric evaluations and life with the state's most dangerous criminally insane. But if you ask a member of the victim's family, at least it's a life.
Poor cashier.
The firebombing 1 year ago today killed 5 people and injured 16 others. After the crime, the accused Billy Ferry was judged incompetent to stand trial. He was sent here to the state hospital at Chattahoochee, where he's constantly being evaluated. When we asked to talk to and photograph Billy Ferry, his attorney said absolutely not. But he lives here, behind a double barbed wire fence, and the state's maximum security for the criminally insane. Since Ferry left Hillsborough County, he's had one other competency hearing. On January 27th, his records indicate John William Ferry is still incompetent to stand trial, and that further hospitalization is warranted. Stuart Parsons was in charge of the latest evaluation. He's the director of the hospital's division dealing with the criminally insane.
In about 75 to 80% of our cases, the people have their competency restored and they're back to court within 6 months after they arrive here. The remaining group stay, a considerably longer period, but most of them ultimately leave here and ultimately return to the criminal justice system in some fashion.
Bringing Billy Ferry to trial may even be more important to the families of the victims. Lee Carter was a cashier at the supermarket. She died instantly in the fire. Her parents keep her bedroom the same as it was 1 year ago when she was alive. It's a constant reminder of her and the family's desire for justice.
The memory of her and the life that we had with her, the family, is just fantastic.
I know she'll never be replaced, but I do think that the man who killed her should have to pay with his life if he took her and the others.
I'm Ann Dwyer. July 2nd, 1983, a day that brought tragedy to many families. It was a destructive scene. Burn victims were transported with delicacy. Employees were comforted by friends and families. Investigators smelled for gasoline. The charred registers were visual reminders of what happened inside. An unidentified eyewitness recalled what he saw that night.
A poor cashier, she didn't make it. You see, he burned the bad boy real bad. I think he's still alive.
Ellis Pajoles was bagging groceries. He did survive, but not without scars. His back was badly burned. His legs are scarred, too.
Right now, I'm going through the slow process of being a burn victim and going on in life.
Elizabeth Britton, her daughter Melita, and granddaughter Pammy were in the checkout line that night. All three were burned. Mrs. Britton says while the burns have healed, the emotional trauma has not.
You see a beautiful young girl, they're going to take your money, and all of a sudden you look up, she's in flames. You don't forget that, never. 3 months after it all happened, I had a emotional physical breakdown. I couldn't cope with anything. And, you know, it just, really, it gets you. I remember it.
The Brittons were one of the families helped out financially by the WXFL telethon and a fund set up by the Red Cross. The burn victims say the tragedy is now a nightmare, one they'd like to forget, but say they never will. Ann Dwyer, Newswatch 8, Claremelle City.
Nightmares keep it vivid in their minds, but with this new law, the Carters will have input in every step of the judicial system if accused firebomber Billy Ferry ever goes to trial.
You may remember hearing about Lee Carter when Billy Ferry allegedly threw 3 gallons of gasoline around this Winn-Dixie store and ignited it. 2 gallons splashed on the 20-year-old checkout clerk. The young woman was filling in at the Claremelle Winn-Dixie just for that night.
Well, this day, a year ago, I sat here waiting for the coroner to call, saying I could come and claim a body. And I wait until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they finally call and they say, you can come and tell your funeral home to come and pick her body up. And I never saw her again.
A year later, Nida Carter still has nightmares of her daughter on fire screaming. The pain of Lee's loss will never leave this family, but under the new victims' rights law, the 3 remaining Carters will be notified of any judicial action taken against Billy Ferry, and they will be able to give their thoughts in person or by letter in every step of the judicial process. Billy Ferry so far is not competent to stand trial. He is being treated, or at least housed, at a state mental institution in Chattahoochee. But if Ferry ever does go to trial, the Carters know what they'll say under the new law.
Nothing will ever take the place of our daughter. Absolutely nothing. But I feel personally that the person who has committed this terrible, terrible crime, yes, I would emphasize that the death penalty be applied in this case.
I think they should make the right decisions about the trial and everything, and that they should just give the death sentence to him, because he took my sister's life, and I just think that his life should be taken the same way.
Ain't nobody there to turn me off. When the person has put on the new shoes, I walk around that town good shoes. I'll look away to heaven. Look away to heaven. I'll look away to heaven. But I hope I don't win the band. private officers looking from his birth. Oldest man that ever lived on earth. Lived 900 years and 16 lives. Died and went to heaven in plenty of time. I look away to heaven. I look away to heaven. I look away to heaven. Lord, I hope I join the band.
Let's talk to David and Brandon. Hello, David.
Hello.
What you got?
I got a question about the judicial system.
Yeah?
Okay, my sister Leanne died in that firebombing in Winn-Dixie,
Oh,
Clear
boy.
Mill.
I'm sorry.
And, well, anyway, it happened 3 years ago, and my family and I are really wanting Ferry and the electric chair, and apparently all these appeals coming up and everything is going to really put that to the, to the floor. So what I'm asking is, how long do these appeals usually last, and, how many years do these, how many do they have available to them?
Well, to answer your question, tragically, they're going to last for you for what will seem to be an eternity because of the emotions involved. They may appeal to the 2nd District Court of Appeals. If error is found, it can be sent back for retrial. If he's convicted again, they can try to find error and appeal again. If they can't find it through there, they can go all the way to the Supreme Court of the state of Florida several times. If they find a federal issue, they can exhaust these remedies. They can step over into your federal court system. Or could go as far as the Supreme Court of the United States. You must stop and look at some of the men who are presently on death row in this state. Some have been there a long, long time, a number of years.
10 years or more.
10 years or more. I cannot say to you that the judicial system is defective in this. I cannot say to you that it's serving you as best it could, because the interest of both parties exist. As much as you feel opposed